Velodrome has been called the most sustainable, the greenest of all the venues, so it seems a good place to start. It is a quite extraordinary achievement, as I'm sure you know, and you will hear more. It was also the first Olympic venue actually completed in February 2011 in 23 months, and that is 18 months before the start of the Games. Quite an extraordinary achievement.
Our key message from this for industry is that actually the client's got a responsibility in all of this as well. It needs to show real leadership. And so on elements such as sustainability, such an easy thing for clients to go out there and say, we want a green building or we want this, and then sort of like hide behind cost and programme and everything else. So it's absolutely vital that the client shows the leadership to do that.
It's something that still retains that double curve form, because actually that is as efficient as we can get it. But we have sort of done various things, such as sort of removing the sort of more bulbous nature of the bowl and slimming that right down, and effectively sort of shrink wrapping it around the seats, which we think actually has sort of helped to enhance the overall concept that we started out with, but has also helped us greatly in terms of meeting cost targets.
Another one is clearly getting a contractor on board early. This whole sort of diversion route through the steel arches simply wouldn't have happened had the contractors been brought on earlier. And in many ways we could argue that ISG were brought on board about stage D, so it could have been a lot worse than it was. But particularly when you're looking at non-common forms, please get contractors in. I mean, they are the experts. So as a design team, we can go so far, but you need cost advice and you need construction advice, and that really can only come from the experts.
Basically, as the cable was on, and Andrew showed you some photographs of it lying on the floor, lifted up, you've got a structure that gets pulled out as the cable is tensioned or pulled back in again. And then when it's loaded with the cassettes on the outside, it pulls the structure back out again. So the tolerances and the movements were had to be quite clearly defined on how we could get those right tolerances and where it would sit within the building. So that was a challenge on its own. The outcome of it was that by moving to cable net, we saved about £1 million in the purchase of steel. So by going down this route, it actually knocked £1 million off the cost alone on the steel structure.
I think next time I would like to push the standards even further. I think they've demonstrated that you can surpass all of the standards that we set. I think we particularly introduce embodied carbon, but I think we would also now recognise that we can go for 30% improvement over Part L. There's a bunch of other kind of lessons that I think we've learnt from this building that you can fine-tune and get the building right, but you'll only do it if you get the right team. So I think appointing the right team from the client, well, the client doesn't appoint themselves, but getting the right attitude from the client, but then getting the right program management team, getting the right contractors is really, really critical.
Duncan Young, Lend-Lease. Just wanted to ask a question. As I look down the list, I don't see too many cost consultants, so we know they have the ability to derail things pretty quickly. How are we getting the learning to them?
From our side, it really was just getting the guys that know what it's all about in as early as possible. I mean, we tend to work on projects now when cost consultants keep the specialists away because they want to keep the market lively when they go to market, which is fine in one way, but it just is completely missing out the answer. I think there needs to be an understanding that when you're slightly off the realms, if you're building a building in central London, you know how much steel is, you know how much concrete is. It's a very basic thing. But when you're doing innovative structures, everyone has to accept that you need the collective team, whether it's engineering, architecture, or cost advice, to get the right answer.
Victoria from Aldersgate Group. I was just wondering if we knew how much more this project cost overall because it had such high sustainability values.
Embodied carbon, when you're reducing embodied carbon, you're potentially kind of taking materials out and lightweighting a building and therefore saving money. You know, so from that point of view, there are potentially big sort of cost savings. And it's something that BREEAM and other things don't pick up. Elements like renewables, we know they cost more. Building in a passive rather than an active heating and cooling system, you know, is pretty much cost neutral and can save money. So again, it depends on which aspect of the sustainability debate you're looking at.
How much of the sustainability achievement for this particular project was delivered because of the commitments that were nailed down in the bid book? You know, the question is, was it done because it had to be done and that was an unmovable, non-negotiable thing? Would it have happened any other way, I suppose, is that question.
The reason that we exceeded those targets is because there was I've talked about the culture. There was a culture that wanted to work together and look at the values and see whether we could actually go one better. I think Dan said that, you know, that the targets they set, they were going to be like 100%. Said, well, hold on a minute, that might be a little bit too far. Can we bring it back to 50? But I think when we sat at it, and I think through the design process, it would be, well, if we did this, we would actually be able to achieve that. And I think the corporately of sitting down together will exceed targets in my book. And yes, will we take them forward? Yeah, true we will. And we will want to demonstrate what can be achieved.